Now, I would say that the larger question of can we let somebody like Kavanaugh be taken down by accusations of things he did when he was 17? Can we live in that world? And the answer is solidly no. Solidly no. I also suspect that male voters, a lot of male voters are going to be defecting the Democrats. I don't know if you'll have a lot of female voters defecting Republicans over this. Probably some, because it's a big country, so there's always somebody doing something. But I would expect that for every Republican woman who might say, I'm going to go with the Democrats on this one because of this issue, there might be 25 men who say, I don't want to live in a world where an accusation is enough. So there was a great article by Bret Stephens in the New York Times about how apparently he's no Trump fan, but in this particular case, he prefers a bully. It's one of those strange situations where if the bully's on your side, you kind of like a bully because you don't want to get bullied, and the best person to stop you from getting bullied is a bully. I will tell you that in high school, bullying, of course, is a thing in every school. But in my high school, the biggest, physically the biggest, most dangerous, toughest bully was a friend of mine. I liked him. We did a lot of stuff together. We played sports together and stuff. And so when lesser bullies attempted to bully me, it didn't really work because the biggest bully was on my side. I don't think I planned it that way. I don't remember my thinking. But Trump is kind of like that. He's the bigger bully. So there are a lot of men who are looking at this situation and saying, I'm not sure this is fair anymore. Because you remember, it wasn't long ago that the complaint against men sounded like this. It was, male privilege, white male privilege. And when I hear stuff like that, I say to myself, okay, that's actually a real thing. Not in every situation. I don't think the unemployed ex-steelworker in the Rust Belt has got a lot of male privilege, white male privilege, but I do. So I would say that there's definitely a white male privilege that exists. So if somebody complains about it, I'm going to say, well, it's not some kind of universal thing. I don't know what to do about it. It's not necessarily, fairness to try to adjust that. There are a lot of things you can say about it, but at least you're talking about something that's a real thing. And you can say, all right, I may not agree, but it's a legitimate conversation. But doesn't it feel like it went past that? It went past that to outright anti-male behavior. To me, it felt like the Kavanaugh thing was proxy revenge. Proxy meaning a stand-in. That there were a lot of women and probably a lot of Democrats in general who felt like victims. A lot of women who were literally victims of men in their past, and a lot of Democrats who probably feel like victims just because their party is not in power and they're afraid of Trump, etc. So it feels to me like the attacks on Kavanaugh were, partly naked politics as you'd expect them, but they seem to be fueled, the energy behind them, the enthusiasm wasn't just about abortion. Because as I've said before, the states would probably keep the abortion laws largely intact in most places, not everywhere. But it seemed to me that this was more of a revenge situation. Did it feel that way to you? To me, it felt like that people I didn't know were taking revenge on people like me, people like Kavanaugh, because they were very angry about other things that have happened. And that is such a big, important thing that you have to stop that. You can't have a civilization where people get proxy revenge. This was revenge against Trump. It was revenge against every man who'd ever wronged them. It was hatred of white people, by some people, and not everybody. Nothing I'm saying is true of every person. These are generalities. But it felt like anti-white, anti-male, anti-Trump. It was just proxy revenge. At least for the public. For the public, it felt like revenge. For the politicians, it was more of a power grab in which they were manipulating the emotions of their people. Did any of you see an interview that Alyssa Milano gave on, I think it was MSNBC, in which she actually speculated that Trump had some kind of cult-like mind control going on? And as she said it, you actually saw the hosts on MSNBC. MSNBC, the group that probably hates Trump more than anybody, and they just looked at each other like, when she's talking about his cult-like mind control abilities, the hosts are just like, even they weren't even on board. So once again, we see an overreach that is almost certainly going to activate more men than women. And to the degree that the Democrats have branded themselves as the anti-male party, and that's what it is now. I would say that it wasn't long ago that I would have said that the Democrats were more pro-women, and I would have said that might be a good idea. It could be healthy. I like the competitive, democratic process where there are parties that are different. They've got a distinct point of view. They might be advocates for some group more than others. As long as it's explicit, as long as we can vote against it or for it, I'm okay with a good, healthy competition of ideas. So there's nothing inherently wrong with having one of the major parties be far more heavily, female-centric. There's nothing wrong with that, But I think they overshot the mark, and they've been emboldened and become bullies, and they've become flat-out anti-male at this point. In a way that the Republicans are unambiguously not anti-female. The Republicans do have a number of policies about reproductive rights and stuff that women would not prefer by a majority, I believe. I think that's true, that women by a majority would not prefer those things. But there's nothing in the Republican philosophy that's based on a dislike or an animus to women. In fact, it's the opposite. The reason conservatives, are pro-life includes women, or female fetuses, shall we say, if you want to be specific. The Republicans are specifically trying to protect women from immigration crime. They're trying to protect women from being aborted, but they do not give them the same. They would prefer that women not have the same options for reproductive rights in some cases. But there's no hatred about it. It's just a difference of what's the best way to organize society. On the Democrat side, there's actual hatred. And when was the last time you saw anything that looked like, I'll hold back that question. There's always something. So that's enough about that. So the anti-male party has probably made one of this Kavanaugh situation, there's a non-zero chance that historians will look back at this as the worst mistake a political party ever made. Now, you could argue that when Hillary Clinton said her deplorables comment, that was, a gigantic problem. But that was one person making one comment in one place, so it turned out poorly, but you can't say that was the party. The whole Kavanaugh thing really is about the whole party because it's an organized, party-wide attempt. And I think historians are going to say it just looked so anti-male that they just killed themselves. They just shot themselves in the foot.